First to the developing fire emergency in New South Wales. 14 emergency warnings are now in place, among them one near Port Macquarie. What we understand is that fires at Hillville and Crowdy Bay National Park near Taree also have forced the closure of the Pacific Highway. Parents have been asked to collect students from schools near a blaze at Linfield Park Road in Port Macquarie, with major fires also burning at Tyringham near Coffs Harbour, Willy Willy west of Kempsey and Cayenne Road and Fortescue Creek. People near a fire at Rumba Dump on the mid-north coast are being urged to seek shelter as the fire approaches. To get the latest from that fireground near Port Macquarie, I'm now joined by our reporter Louisa Rubbo. Louisa, I understand that this is the fire that's been burning for several weeks, but today's hot and gusty temperatures have seen it flare and spread quite quickly. What is the latest information you have?
That's right. This fire has been burning, as you say, for up to 2 months in peat. They tried to flood this fire about a month ago, but the hot, dry, gusty conditions have caused flares up of this fire. It flared up yesterday afternoon and threatened properties west of Port Macquarie in a residential area, large rural blocks in an area called Thrumster Street. So overnight, it was amazing that firefighters were able to save properties, save homes, because that fire came within metres of the house. And certainly last night we saw that there were sheds and garages and surrounding structures that had been destroyed by that fire. Now this afternoon there is an eerie glow across Port Macquarie. It's tinged with orange. I don't know if that's from the dust out west, but it certainly does look like Mars here in Port Macquarie this afternoon. Further south, we were down at that Hillville fire southwest of Taree earlier today. We spoke to a gentleman whose house was saved, but certainly all his vintage cars and boats and all the other things on his property were destroyed, melted and mangled mess. We tried to head to Failford Road, where we understood there was a house lost there, but we were stopped on the Pacific Highway just north of the Lakes Way exit heading into Foster-Tuncurry. So all the cars in the southbound lane were turned around in the southbound lane and headed north. I did speak to one woman in a vehicle who was headed to Newcastle for her godson's wedding this afternoon in Newcastle, but she was also turned around. So the situation is unfolding. We've got fire trucks on spot fires from that Linfield Park fire that has flared up this afternoon. There are choppers in the air. I don't know how they can see anything, but you can hear choppers in the air doing their best to water bomb. As you say, a nearby school certainly was closed today, and there's a lot of activity down there at the moment. There are evacuation centres, 14 emergency blazes burning across the state, 12 of which I think are in the mid-north coast region, spanning from Foster-Tuncurry right up to Coffs Harbour.
Can you give us a sense of how concerned locals are there as they make their way out of the affected areas, given that they have been dealing with flare-ups from this particular fire and certainly the smoke associated with it for up to 2 months now?
Well, I think today they're very worried because we haven't seen flare-ups from this fire throughout the course of the blaze burning over the last 2 months. I mean, the blaze now is moving towards the Pacific Highway. I understand the Pacific Highway is closed because the fire has jumped the Pacific Highway and has now closed the Pacific Highway to the north of Port Macquarie. So people are on their mowers, people are at home, people are not at work, people are clearing their properties. There are huge gatherings in neighbourhoods of residents standing together, just watching and anxiously waiting.
Now we know that this blaze was really exacerbated today because of those gusty winds. What are the conditions like there at the moment?
Well, at the moment, it doesn't feel too windy, but speaking to a man on this property a short time ago, he thinks the lightest of sea breezes may have caused a flare-up. So it goes to show you that in these hot, dry, westerly conditions, northwesterly winds conditions, that it doesn't take much at all for an ember to land in some bush somewhere and threaten homes and lives.
And what do you sense is the morale of the crews fighting this blaze this afternoon?
Oh, I think the crews, they're doing a tremendous job, and the community, I'm sure right across Australia, New South Wales, northern New South Wales, are extremely grateful, but certainly fatigue must be kicking in, and hopefully they will get some respite, because they have been going at this for 2 months now, and it's not even summer yet.
You mentioned that there are helicopters in the air. What else have you seen of firefighting aircraft?
Yep, so, yesterday afternoon, I did see the large air tanker drop retardant at that emergency fire which threatened homes, businesses. Amazing scenes out of Foster late yesterday afternoon, where I believe a nursing home had to be evacuated. I haven't seen the large air tanker today, but certainly there are seaplanes here up in the air. There are a number of aircraft up in the air. They're just now to the, where are we? We're just to the west of Port Macquarie, so they're just trying to tackle that flare-up that probably did close the Pacific Highway just north of Port Macquarie.
That is our reporter Louisa Robbo at Port Macquarie for us. We'll return to you throughout the afternoon for more from New South Wales RFS headquarters. Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons is standing by. Commissioner, thank you so much for your time. It is a terribly challenging day for your crews. Please bring us up to date with this current situation.
Yes, good afternoon. Unfortunately, we are in uncharted territory this afternoon. We've never seen this many fires concurrently at emergency warning alert level. We've got 90 fires burning across New South Wales. 50 of them remain uncontained. We've got 14 of those fires burning at the emergency warning alert level, necessitating numerous emergency alert activations with messages and voice messages to affected communities. We've got another 5 at watch and act alert level, and unfortunately we've got some worsening in the weather conditions still ahead of us throughout the afternoon. We've got more than 1,000 firefighters working on the fires, more than 70 aircraft working on the fires, and dozens of heavy plant and machinery trying to do the best they can to save and protect as many people as possible.
Which are the fires that you are most concerned about in terms of life and property at this moment?
All 14 fires that are at emergency warning are the highest priorities at the moment, and they are simply from the Queensland border area up near Tenterfield, right down through the ranges, out through to the Port Macquarie, Hastings, Taree region, and just recently we've got another one up in the Blue Mountains near Woodford. They are all at emergency warning because they are impacting or imminently impacting communities and people. It is a very dangerous situation right across these fire grounds at the moment, and with the close proximity of so many in northeastern New South Wales, we're getting some increasing aggressive fire behaviour, which is creating a very dangerous and volatile situation. So we need people very much to focus on their own safety, the safety of their loved ones, and be very attuned to what's going on around them, and be ready to act in accordance with their bushfire survival plan or the messages that are being delivered through the fire authorities concerning the best options for their safety and welfare. Clearly, if you don't need to be in any of these fire affected areas, then don't be. You're getting in the way. We've got arterial roads and lines being closed off as a result of fires. The Pacific Highway M1 is closed. We've got reports that the New England Highway is now going to be impacted by fire in the not too distant future if it's not already being impacted. But we cannot emphasise enough the volatility and the danger associated with all these fires, this large number of fires at an emergency warning level, and so many of them are in relative proximity to one another, and their very own energy is starting to influence the behaviour of the fires closest to them.
I do want to ask you more about what you mean by aggressive fire activity. Is it that the embers are really being sent much further ahead of the main fire front?
Yeah, that's correct. That's one of the dynamics, absolutely. And if I can just say, the flammability of the fuels, the flammability of the vegetation, because the drought is just so profound, there is just no moisture left in the vegetation. So you've got a high energy output, the fire burning and moving through vegetation very quickly. You're quite right. This fire spotting activity that we're seeing in the last 24 hours and again today, whilst you might under these sorts of conditions expect anywhere from 4 to 6 kilometres ahead for large ember travel, unfortunately we're seeing twice that. We're seeing embers travelling 10 to 12 kilometres ahead of the main fire front, and those embers are landing in very dry, highly flammable vegetation and starting new fires very, very easily, which are again spreading very, very quickly. So you get this exponential growth of the fire front and the acceleration of the fire front moving across the landscape. The other challenge that we are seeing, particularly up along the coastal strip, is you've got a convergence of winds. So while the predominant pattern is westerly, northwesterly, and that means most of the fires are heading in an easterly or southeasterly direction, unfortunately we're also seeing some coastal influences which is driving fire behaviour in a westerly direction as well. So it's a very dynamic, it's a very volatile, and it's a very dangerous set of circumstances that we're experiencing right across these fire grounds in New South Wales.
Given what you've just outlined, and of course you did mention earlier that anyone in these areas needs to stay up to date with the RFS website, are you changing your information to residents slightly because of this dynamic behaviour? Would you prefer people to evacuate early when they have the chance rather than stay and defend their properties?
The overriding message in a lot of these situations, and we've said it this morning in a number of areas particularly, if you are unprepared and your plan is to leave, then early this morning, leaving then was the safest option. Unfortunately, across these 14 fire grounds, the principal message being delivered to those impacted communities is about sheltering and sheltering in place because it is simply too dangerous and too late to leave. You've got to understand that a lot of the access roads in and around many of these fires are more dangerous than staying in a shelter or in a safer place in your local community or in your property. So the general message is, if you don't need to be in an at-risk area and you are not prepared and your plan would be to leave if fire affected you and it's safe to do so, then yes, go to a safer place. There are some areas set up along the coast around Foster and Taree and Tuncurry where you can have a safer place, but that's not going to be the case for everybody, which makes it a very complex, a very challenging and indeed a very dangerous set of circumstances this afternoon. We will be tailoring and nuancing the messages to those different fire areas onto our website. I know the ABC through television and radio help us get those messages out, and they'll do that through this afternoon. But really, the website will have each fire area broken down, and the particular nuances to those fires will be articulated in major fire updates and key messages. And if you can't get onto the website and you can't listen to the radio, then of course you've got the Fires Near Me app that you can download on your smartphone device or your tablet to also stay up to date that way.
Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We hope to stay in touch with you throughout the afternoon.
Thank you.
And those important messages at the end of Commissioner Fitzsimmons' message there. If you are in the affected areas, please do stay across the RFS website or download its Fires Near Me app. Also tune in to ABC Local Radio for emergency broadcasting information, and we will also seek to keep you up to date here on ABC News.